Oh, hello again everyone, welcome back. Thanks for visiting once again, and you can now see where I am right here. I'm at RAF Cosford and I'm standing right next door to TSR2. So, for those of you who don't know, TSR2 stands for Tactical Strike Reconnaissance Aircraft Mark II. It was a product of the BAC aircraft company, which contained within it the English Electric Aircraft Company. Many of you will know that the chief test pilot at English Electric and later at BAC was Roland Beaumont. He was the test pilot for XR219, which is the earlier aircraft from this one. And what we're looking at here is XR220. So I'm going to move around to the port side here and start from that side and then work my work my way backwards. I'm going to run through the aircraft from what I know, looking at various aspects and zeroing in on some aspects and perhaps not so much on others. But this is going to be for the aid of modelers who might want to build a TSR2 for themselves, and I'll be making particular reference to the Airfix 148 scale model kit, which many of you who visit my channel regularly will know that I have recently built. So, starting at the front, you can see the pitot head here, which is a conical and dual material here. There's a chrome and then there's a brass section at the front here, melting into the nose here with a slight step there, and then the radome here, which then joins onto the aircraft. If you employ any of the resin upgrades, some of the resin cockpit upgrades rely on you actually cutting off the nose at this point here. You will note that the nose cone leans slightly forwards at that point, and it's worthwhile paying attention to that when you cut the nose cone off. So I think this is UHF antenna that you can see under here is really quite thin, and the Airfix model's antenna on that part of the aircraft is actually oversized, so you'll have to think about thinning that one down to a fairly significant degree. As we look back through, we can see just at this point here there is an under camera, so that's a viewing camera which the pilot uses to look back at the, to zero in on that there, you can see that, to look back down at the front wheels of the aircraft and so on. And that slips away when the undercarriage comes up and disappears. So we'll zero back out from that there. As you can see, the emergency jettison handle for the canopies, so ground crew can jettison the canopies perfectly well there. The canopies themselves are big and very, very heavy, and as you can see, there are mounting hydraulic platforms, there are hydraulic levers there that push the canopies up. You can also make out that they are coloured gold, so that was for anti-flash purposes. It did interfere with vision for the pilots in the when they were flying, but you can mimic that colour fairly well by mixing Tamiya's transparent yellow and titanium gold. Don't mix too much in the way of titanium gold, because what happens is the paint goes slightly speckledy. I'm going to zero in, if I can, on the inside of the canopies as well. Some of the earlier aircraft had more detail in them you can see here, but you can add in the detail, and this gives you a view of what the canopy sides look like, so that you can add that in for yourselves. I'll go to the front here and show you that as well. You can see also, as I zero in there, there's a canopy handle there. There's a similar one on the starboard side, but further forward, and you can see that there as well. So you can see as I zero in there, and you can see the patterning of the canopy frames. So we'll move further aft towards the avionics bays. So there are two avionics bays. There's one on either side, and immediately below the avionics bay you can see another one of the auxiliary pitos. Now those are not included in the Airfix 148 scale kit, and you can model them fairly easily. As you can see, the pitot and the mounting are made of the same material, and it's actually not black, but it is a darker, sort of darkish gunmetal colour as you can see there. So I'll zero in on that and show you that there and zero out, and that gives you the idea of exactly where it fits. Now, moving on to the front undercarriage here. The undercarriage on the Avionics model, and indeed on the white metal upgrades, is it's fairly black. But you can add in more detail. Notably, what you can add in is the nose wheel steering jacks that you can see right in front of you. They fit below the landing lights there, which in this particular case is slightly off level, but that's of no matter. You do get the landing lights as part of the system, but what you can also do is add in the hydraulic lines as well. A 0.1mm lead wire will allow you to be able to do that very easily. And moving back and around, we'll be able to see this in more detail as I come down the starboard side. You can see the rear scissor jack there, looking in there. Again, there's hydraulic cables moving over that, or hydraulic lines moving over that as well. We can actually look back at the engine here. We can see a cutaway of the engine, and the engine sits fairly far inboard, but that was the new unit, which is an Olympus 220R. It was a brand new unit to go into a brand new aircraft there, and it wasn't without problems, let's put it like that. So let us look again at the air intakes, the intake nacelles here. As you will see, the intakes themselves stand slightly away from the side of the fuselage, and that's important to get right on the model. And the scale size of the intake blades there in terms of rims, on the model itself you'll need to thin them down. My one mistake on my TSR2 that I built was that I didn't do that. The other thing to look at here, of course, as well, is the auxiliary air intakes. Now, in this particular case, these air intakes are closed on this side. I'm hopeful that they'll be open on the other, perhaps, to provide an alternative view of these. But it is possible to model them open. You can use polystyrene sections for this, but you'll need to make them fairly thin. You can do an optical thinning of the front edges to make them blade-like, and that looks quite convincing. So if you're modelling XR219, then let me move my finger out of the way of the lens there. That'd probably be helpful, wouldn't it? If you're modelling XR219, this rear-facing camera here that you can see the window for here, the camera isn't actually in there, but you can see that window there. That rear-facing camera isn't actually included on XR219. So XR219 was the only aircraft to fly, and we're looking at XR220 today. XR219, as you'll probably be aware, doesn't exist any longer. So you'll need to fill in the hole that's left in the side of the fuselage on the Airfix model if you're going to model XR219. And you'll need to make some other changes as well to the undercarriage. I'll come to that in a second. So as we look into the inside of the the wheel wells here, you will see that there is some significant detail there. I'm going to look in as much as I can there to give you an idea of what's inside there. The standard undercarriage wells that you get with the Airfix model are very bare indeed, but again, with lead and copper wires you can upgrade them fairly significantly, and again you can see some of the detail there. So I'll play the camera onto that for a while, and you can just have a quick look there, and that allows you to be able to see this really nice little additional detail. You can go as much as you like on this. Ordinarily, of course, if you model the aircraft in action, the undercarriage doors would not be open like this. So when the aircraft is on the ground, the front undercarriage doors here and there are always closed. They will only open up when it comes time to retract the undercarriage. So we'll move along. I'll zero back out again. We then move to the main undercarriage, and it's what's called a bogie undercarriage. So there are two wheels, one behind the other, and you'll notice how thick the undercarriage leg is, the oleo leg, and also what you can see is the hydraulic lines here that extend from inside the undercarriage well here, where the distribution arms are for the distribution lines are, all the way down the outside of the undercarriage leg here, and then in through the distribution systems here, and then on to the legs themselves. It's actually really quite an easy job to model those hydraulic lines there. You can see that quite easily, and I've done that on my model. This particular strut here is an oleo steadying strut, and ensures that these two bogies are correctly positioned for the aircraft to land properly when the undercarriage is deployed. So those struts are included in the model, but you have to search for them because they're not written up. Okay, so moving along here, you can see the the underside of the wing section here. Now, if we move back further away, you can see the very distinctive downturn of the tip of the wing here, and this moves away, so you see the red light on the port side here. There's always just a little red port left at the end of dinner, so that's the way that you remember it. And we can see that the blown flaps here are slightly deployed, and this gives us the opportunity to see the darker coloured inside of the flaps there. Again, it is possible to model this, although the Airfix model doesn't allow you to be able to do this from the box. You have to use some sections, and you can make that quite easily. The air brake petals, there are two on each side, top and bottom, are shown here in a partially open position. On XR220 there were two options for this, and there's a reason for that, but there was a slightly open section which was much less open than this, top and bottom here, and then fully closed. This had to do with the fact that the servo motor to open up these petals was on the top of the aircraft, just forward of the tail, just where I'm pointing there, and had an access hatch there. But there was a problem with the gearing on this particular, on the 219, such that the petals couldn't all be closed at the same time. So they were left slightly cracked for subsonic flying, and for supersonic flying they were left shut and locked shut. So moving on here, this is an all-flying tail with what are called tailerons. So the tailerons are elevators and ailerons, and you can see them locked here in this particular position. Looking at the tailpipe outers here, it is possible to see that they are two different colours. Slightly darker colour, a burnt metal will do there, and a slightly lighter colour there. And we can also look into the back of the jet pipe here. As you can see, the blanks are placed here, because otherwise I suspect people would throw cans in and so on. Another little aspect to look at here is that you can see the chute release here. So this is the parachute release harness here. This is where the parachute cable was strapped. The cable ran up this channel here and then into here, and the parachute sat in this area here. This flipped downwards and released the chute. No, I'm sorry, it flipped upwards and released the parachute so that the braking chute could be deployed. That shows what I know, doesn't it? So as we move down to the starboard side now, we can get a good look at the air brake petal here. We can see the symbol of the aircraft, XR220. It's the second aircraft. Incidentally, this aircraft was on the flight line at RAF Boscombe Down when the project was cancelled and was not permitted to fly. They were desperate to get the thing in the air because they felt that it would be helpful to the project to be able to do this, but it wasn't allowed. So what we can also see here is the bomb doors are open. There are blanks contained within there, so ordinarily there will be an awful lot more space than you can see there. And it's also possible to see, actually, within the bomb doors, you can see the vision hatches, the inspection hatches, and there's one on either side at the same level. Let's just see if we can zero in on that. There we go, you can see that there. And then coming back, so back we are. It's my finger coming over the lens again. Well, coming over to the undercarriage, you can now again have a good view of the undercarriage oleo leg. Let's see if I can give you a better view of the rear section of the oleo leg with the scissor jack there. And you can see quite easily the angle at which the oleo leg is placed in its open position. You can also see the 5 black lines there, the hydraulic lines, and there's one metal-clad hydraulic line, and then there's a further line with an articulated hose on it. So if you want to detail them in, you can see the route that articulated hose takes up the back of the scissor jack there, and then up the side of the outside of the oleo leg, and then from there into forward of the oleo leg and away somewhere secret from there. Once again, what we have here is we have some screens in the place here so that people can't actually put their hands in, but we can actually see a little bit more detail here, which is rather nice. So we can have a look in here. I can't shed much more light on it than that. You can see the ducting there, which again is a different colour. That's heat resistant ducting, so when the engines were running you had to be careful about that. You can see the orange sections up in the front there, just in the middle. So we'll move away from that. And then as we move a bit further down, we're coming sort of close to the end of the tour of this aircraft now. We can see once again the rear view facing camera there, and the intake nacelle. We're near at closing time now, and what we can now see is standby. Well, that said something like they're going to close in a minute, but there we are. That's technology for you. We can send men to the moon, but we can't make public address systems work properly. Hey ho. So this is the avionics bay, and we can see the door open. Now there is a resin upgrade that will allow you for the Airfix 148 scale model to actually deploy the avionics door open. So if you want to introduce that level of interest, you can do that very precisely. Just so that you can see the roundels here. These roundels are not faded. That is how they were on the day that the unit was painted, and they're designed to be like that. Just a quick word on the undercarriage doors for the front undercarriage. Once again, there's a front section door and then there's a rear section door. This rear section door would always have been closed unless the undercarriage was rising or falling. We can now zip in and have a quick look at a closer look at the undercarriage steering jacks, and you can see them there, and then moving down to the bottom of the undercarriage oleo leg here, and you can see how that fits in there. So there's a lot of detail there that you can pick up on to have a look at the detailing your models. I would say that 1/48 scale TSR2s are quite hard to get hold of. Once again, repeated on the starboard side, we have the emergency canopy jettison lever there. That's inside that little panel there, and we're back now down to the front of the aircraft. You can see wear points here, actually up at this level. That's where the pilots and navigators or observers entry ladders were sited there, and also there. You can see that there, and there are wear points. I suspect you know, you could model that in. I haven't done that on mine, but I've been promising myself for a while that I would come along and have a look at TSR2, and it's a very large, very, very imposing aircraft indeed. I hope that you've enjoyed this little look at TSR2 today. I will come back another time and tour another aircraft for you. But in the meantime, I'll say thanks very much indeed for your time today. Hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to have a look at my video series on the TSR2. It culminates in a completed aircraft, which I hope that you like. And feel free to like, share and subscribe. Also to leave any comments that you want. Thank you very much to my subscribers, both old and new. Thanks very much for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.